Good day, viewers! So for the video presentation, we will be discussing about the topic on the theory of gender development. So, upon this presentation, topics concerning with the construction or the development of the self and implies a theory wherein individuals speaking, thinking, acting, and perceiving are viewed as a form of culturally specific patterns of behaviors that develop over time. This was quoted by Ditch in 2008. So these are the individuals involved in the discussion: Mr. Al Cabanez, Ms. Kyla Ginitaran, Ms. Daxi Nicole Molina, Ms. Aloysa Bell Lavinia, Ms. Ara Nicole Dondo, Ms. Clarissa Lauren Lopez, and Ms. Aubrey Gale. The first topic to be discussed will be about the discussion on the biological theory.
What is hormones? A hormone is a class of signaling molecules in a multicellular organisms that are sent to distant organs by complex biological processes to regulate physiology and behavior. What hormones do? Hormones are the body's chemical messengers sending signals into bloodstreams and tissues. Hormones work slowly over time and affect many different processes, including growth and development, metabolism, how your bodies get energy from the foods you eat, sexual function, reproduction, and mood. While the chromosomes is a thread-like structure located inside the nucleus of animals and plant cells. Each chromosome is made of protein and a single molecule of DNA acid passed from parents to offspring. DNA contains the specific instructions that make each type of living creature unique. What chromosomes do? Chromosomes allow DNA to be accurately copied these cells divisions. So one more time, chromosomes are found in the nuclei of our cells and allow DNA to be accurately copied during cell divisions. The difference between the two terms, hormones and chromosomes. Chromosomes initially determine in a person's sex, but most gender development actually comes through the influence of hormones in the womb, while the hormones act on the brain development and cause reproductive organs to develop.
So now we learn what hormones and chromosomes are. Let's move on to what are the role of these in gender development. Chromosomes and hormones are the two components of the biological approach that we must take into account. Chromosomes are made from DNA. Most people have 46 chromosomes and it arranged into 23 pairs, in which the 23rd pair determines the biological sex. The chromosomal structure for female is XX and XY for males. X chromosome is sex chromosome found in both men and women. Females have 2 X chromosomes, whereas males have 1. An X chromosome from each parent produces a female child. Y chromosome, in the other hand, is sex hormones found only in males. When paired with an X chromosome from the mother, it produces a male child. Chromosomes initially determine a person's sex, but most gender development actually comes about through the influence of hormones. Hormones are chemical substances that trigger different reactions in the body. Generally, females and males have the same hormones, but where these hormones concentrate and are produced will determine whether a human will develop male or female-like characteristic. Example, for a human to show male characteristic, first need to have an XY chromosome pair which will stimulate the preference of male genitals. Then, the different hormone level, example high testosterone, will cause them to be more likely to be muscular and develop Adam's apple, among other characteristics. Male developmental hormones are known as androgens, the most prominent of which is testosterone. Testosterone controls the development of male sex organs and begins be produced as around 8 weeks of fetal development. Estrogen is the hormone that influences the development of female sex organs and menstruation.
Good day everyone, I am Miss Aubrey Gay Lakyatan, and today we are going to talk about the Swyer syndrome and the Klinefelter syndrome. So what is Swyer syndrome? So Swyer syndrome is also known as 46XY complete pure gonadal dysgenesis. It is a rare congenital disorder of a sex development. It is characterized by the failed development of the sex glands. Example givens are testicles and ovaries. Usually, the human genotype is made up of 46 chromosomes, 22 pairs that make up the autosomal chromosomes, and a 23rd pair of sex chromosomes which determine the assigned sex of a newborn. If the sex chromosomes have an XX genotype makeup, they usually lead to the development of a vagina, uterus, and fallopian tubes. An XY genetic makeup, on the other hand, usually leads to the development of a penis and a scrotum. People with Swyer syndrome, however, have an XY genetic makeup or genotype, but the development of it are vagina, uterus, and fallopian tubes instead of a penis and a scrotum. This is referred to as a sex reversal, which is also evident in their overall physical appearance, also referred to as phenotype, resulting in an ambiguous female external genitalia. The cause of the Swyer syndrome is still unknown. According to the National Institutes of Health, Swyer syndrome results from mutations of genes that are involved in the sex development of a fetus with an XY chromosomal makeup. So such mutations can be newly developed or inherited, although most cases of the Swyer syndrome result from new mutations and occur in individuals with no family history of the conditions. So the signs and symptoms of the Swyer syndrome are increased height, straight gonads, which is functionless connective tissue that does not secrete sex hormones, or what we call no natural puberty, so which is menstruation or breast. And lastly, it is infertile. So and also it can develop of made of development of gonad tumors. So let's proceed to Klinefelter syndrome. So Klinefelter syndrome, these are the chromosomes or packages of genes found in every cell in the body. There are two types of chromosome called the sex chromosomes that determine the genetic sex of a baby. These are named either X or Y. Usually, a female baby has a 2X chromosomes and a male has 1X and 1Y. But in Klinefelter syndrome, a boy is born with an extra copy of the X chromosomes which determine XXY. The X chromosome is not a female chromosome and it is present in everyone. The presence of the Y chromosome denotes male sex. Boys and men with Klinefelter syndrome are still genetically male and often will not realize they have these extra chromosomes, but occasionally it can cause problems that may require treatment. So what is its cause? So the cause of these are the chromosomes carries extra copies of genes which may interfere with development of the testicles and mean they produce less testosterone, sex hormone, than usual. So Klinefelter syndrome is not directly inherited. The additional X chromosome occurs as a result of either the mother's egg or the father's sperm having the extra X chromosome, an equal chance of the happening in either. So after conception, the chromosome pattern XXY rather than XY. So the symptoms are the symptoms that are found in the Klinefelter syndrome does not usually cause any obvious symptoms early in childhood, and even the later symptoms may be difficult to spot. So many boys and men do not realize they have it. So these are the possible features which are not always present but may include. So in babies and toddlers, they have weak muscles and very flexible joints. So learning to sit up, crawl, walk, and talk later than usual. Being quieter and more passive than usual, and having undescended testicles, only one testicle or a smaller penis. While in childhood, shyness and low confidence, problems with reading, writing, spelling, and paying attention, mild dyslexia or dyspraxia, low energy levels, and difficulty socializing or expressing feelings. In teenagers, growing taller than expected for the family, with long arms or legs, broad hips, poor muscle tone, and slower than usual muscle growth. Reduced facial and body hair that starts growing later than usual. Small firm testes, and enlarged breast of gynecomastia. While in adulthood, inability to have children naturally and low sex drive, small and firm testes, and erection problems.
Disorders in sex development, also known as intersex conditions, refer to a group of congenital conditions in which a person's reproductive or sexual anatomy does not fit typical male or female characteristics. The effects of these conditions can vary widely depending on the specific condition and its severity. However, in general, intersex conditions can affect a person in several ways. First is the physical health. Depending on the specific condition, intersex individuals may be at risk for a range of physical health issues. For example, those with androgen insensitivity syndrome may be at risk for developing testicular or breast cancer, while those with congenital adrenal hyperplasia may experience salt wasting, dehydration, and other complications. Second is the hormonal imbalances. Intersex individuals may have hormonal imbalances that can affect their physical and mental health. For example, people with CAH may have excessive androgens, leading to masculine physical features and an increased risk of mental health issues, such as anxiety and depression. Third is the sexual identity. Intersex individuals may experience confusion or uncertainty about their sexual identity due to their atypical anatomy. For example, a person with ambiguous genitalia may not feel fully male or female and may struggle to define their sexual identity. Fourth is the social stigma. Intersex individuals may face social stigma and discrimination due to their atypical anatomy, which can affect their mental health and well-being. They may experience bullying, harassment, or exclusion from social activities, leading to feelings of isolation and low self-esteem. Fifth is the medical interventions. Some intersex conditions may require medical interventions, such as surgery or hormone therapy, to align a person's anatomy with male or female characteristics. These interventions can have both physical and psychological effects and may be controversial, as they may be performed without the informed consent of the individual. In summary, intersex conditions can have a range of physical, hormonal, sexual, and social effects in an individual. It is important to provide compassionate and respectful care to intersex individuals and to recognize the diversity of human anatomy and identity.
After we had a discussion about our biological theory, let's now jump into our interpersonal influences. We'll be focusing first on the psychological perspective.
Hi there! So let's now talk about the psychosexual development by Freud. Sigmund Freud proposed the theory of psychosexual development, which suggests that human personality is based or is shaped by experience and conflicts related to sexuality in childhood. So according to his theory, there are 5 stages of psychosexual development, each of which is characterized by different focus of sexual energy and a particular conflict that the child must resolve to move on to the next stage. The first theory is the oral stage, which is from birth to 18 months. So during this stage, the child's primary source of pleasure and satisfaction is derived from the mouth. like through activities through sucking, biting, and chewing. The primary conflict of this stage is weaning, or the gradual withdrawal of the breast of the bottle, or the bottle I mean, which must be managed in a way that does not leave the child deprived or feeling overwhelmed. The second stage is the anal stage, which ages from 18 months to 3 years of age. So during this stage, the child's focus of pleasure shifts to the anus, and the child becomes interested in defecation and bowel movements. And the primary conflict for this stage is toilet training, which requires the child to learn to control their bodily fluids and delay gratification. The third stage is the phallic stage, which ages from 3 to 6 years old. During this stage, the child's focus of pleasure shifts to the genital area, and the child becomes interested in their own genitals and those of others. And the primary conflict for this stage is the adipidus complex for the male and electra complex for the female. And this involves unconscious sexual desires for the parent or the opposite sex, or the opposite sex. The fourth stage is the latency stage, which ages to 6 years to puberty or through your teenage years. And during this stage, the child's sexual impulses are largely repressed, and their energy is redirected towards other activities such as school, friendship, leisure, and this stage is characterized by a relative calm in terms of sexual development. And the last stage is the genital stage, which is from puberty to adulthood. During this stage, the child's sexual impulses are reawakened, and they became interested in sexual relationships to others, like when you have a relationship to your opposite sex or to your same sex. And the primary focus of this stage is the ability to form mature, adult sexual relationships, and to resolve any remaining conflicts related to the earlier stages of development. So that is the 5 stages of psychosexual development by Sigmund Freud.
Define libido, fixation, and frustration. So to continue with our discussion about the interpersonal influences on a psychological perspective, libido, fixation, and frustration is encountered. So what is libido? According to Freud, libido is a psychic energy of life in connection to sex drive or sex energy. It could be cited as a part of our id and could be considered as the driving force for all our behavior towards such matter. As our id seeks pleasure, it serves as the source of our wants. It is a quantitative variable force which serves as a measure for processes and transformation taking place in a sexual desire. Fixation, on the other hand, as proposed by Fromm, it is a non-productive form of rootedness signified by reluctance to growth beyond mother's care, a defense mechanism that arises upon the psychic energy being blocked at any stage of development, making psychological development difficult to atone. Freud cited an example of fixation like nail biting, gum chewing, and excessive drinking as a form of oral fixation. So for here, Freud theorized oral, anal, and phallic fixation to describe the types of fixation. He concluded that an individual must resolve their fixation issues in one phase before jumping into the other for an individual to be able to develop psychologically mature. So frustration. What is frustration? Frustration is a feeling of either being over-gratified or under-gratified. Could also be said that it is somehow the feeling of being annoyed at some point, causing to feel frustrated throughout the whole scenario. As for Freud, it is sensation into which a conflict with the psyche arises, resulting in an inner struggle upon maintaining the equilibrium of the libido and the demands of reality. So that's the definition of what is libido, frustration, and fixation.
Kohlberg's theory of gender development. Kohlberg argued that this motivation was first dependent on the child passing through a number of stages of cognitive development. The first stage is gender labeling. By age 3, children can say whether they are a girl or boy, as well as the gender of other people. However, they do not understand that this is a characteristic that can't change over time, like the length of someone's hair or the clothes that they are wearing. Stage 2 is gender stability. By the age of 5, children start to realize that boys will grow up to be dads and girls grow up to be moms, etc. However, they still don't understand that gender can't be changed by changes in appearance or choice of activities. Stage 3, gender constancy. By about age 6 or 7, children begin to understand that sex is permanent across situations and other time. Once they develop this understanding, they begin to act as members of their sex. In this way, Kohlberg argued that the most important aspects of gender development is not biological instincts or cultural norms. Rather, it is a child's cognitive understanding of the social world around them.
So what is the stage of socialization theory? So it pertains to be in the levels of parents, peers, institution, and self-socialization influences. So the socialization theory, as explained by Horrellman and Bauer in 2015, it is the process of an individual development of human personality within a social environment with specific living conditions. It is the approach into which acknowledges how the mind influences human behavior by the means of society-shaped behavior. So the stages of socialization takes place upon levels and categories of whom and what an individual is surrounded by, affecting their societal aspect. It begins as a primary, secondary, and an adult, wherein this involves a young child to develop socially by time and by the influence of those who surrounds him or her. So by parents, by means of interacting through the defined socialization aspect, parents derived as a contributor or the primary contributor of their own children to the planning, caring, as well as interacting. They appear to be a constant factor of which a child's background is to be perceived. It is by how they affect their kids into thinking such beliefs based on how they were perceived and raised in a tradition of some kind. So the primary influencer of how the child perceives socially is by the influence of their parents or in a home setting. So peers, the second one. Peers are individuals whom a person is occasionally with. Peer relationships contribute to a context in which a child learns to social emotional skills as well as strategies performed not being introduced at home. So peers do influence kids or like an individual by skills and beliefs nga kanang wala gina-practice sa balay bitaw, like kanang going out late at night, wala man jud ginatudlo sa balay. So that's the influence, example of the influence of peers to a person. Peer relation both contribute to a positive approach and negative approach for societal attitude. It derives bullying, exclusion, habits of some sort, even not inclined social emotional development. So, mo na ang kanang murag influence or how the peer relation contribute to the societal behavior of a person. So, institutions, the third one. Institutions act a complex group of individuals sharing definite explanation of acts. It includes family, religion, peer groups, media, and etc. An institution comprises a definition of socialization among groups which entails influence into a norm and based in its formality and informality. So self-socialization. Self-socialization could be shortened to a term of a fulfillment of one's potential worth and own value. An individual is able to reflect on itself, formulate vision for the future self, set goals, and even take actions altering the developmental trajectory. For example, a person chooses to follow and imitate the actions being projected upon his or her observation, whereby a person actively influences their own social development. So that's how the social theory, or that's how the aspects of social theory influence an individual into thinking or into having that kind of behavior socially and even privately. So peers, family, or your parents, peers, institutions, and as well as your self-socialization affect how a person intervenes into socially setted na, or like in a social setting. So that's how, example, if a person is like this or socially, it might be influenced by how he or she have been perceived by his peers, parents, or the institutions that she or he is in. So that's it. That is the socialization theory, the family, the parents, peers, institutions, as well as your self-socialization.
Social cognitive theory. So first of all, what is social cognitive theory? So this theory is proposed by Albert Bandura. He suggests that human behavior is shaped by a complex interplay between the personal, behavioral, and environmental factors. The theory emphasizes the importance of observing the modeling of others' behavior, as well as the role of cognitive processes such as attention, memory, and motivation. So actually, there are three main stages of this theory: the personal, behavioral, and environmental. The first stage is personal or the cognitive stage. So, the personal or cognitive stage involves the individual's cognitive processes such as perceptions, beliefs, expectations, and values. And these cognitive processes can influence the individual's behavior and their ability to learn from observation and experience. The second theory, or the second stage, is the behavioral or the operant. So this stage involves the individual's own actions and behaviors, as well as the consequences that follows their action. So such as positive consequences, such as rewards, and it can increase the likelihood of the behavior being repeated. While the negative consequences such as punishment whatsoever can decrease the likelihood of the behavior to be repeated. And the third and the last stage is environmental, or the social stage. So this stage involves the social and physical context in which the individual's behavior occurs. The individual factors or the environmental factors can include the presence or absence of social support, the ability of resources and opportunities, and the cultural norms and expectations that shape the behavior. So overall, the social cognitive theory suggests that human behavior is shaped by a complex interplay between personal, behavioral, and environmental factors. And by understanding these factors and how they interact, individuals can make positive changes in their behaviors and achieve their goals.
Socialization theory. Socialization is a process by which individuals acquire the knowledge, language, social skills, and value to the norms and rules acquired integration into a group or community. Socialization is one of the most important social processes in every human society. Without socialization, the human beings would not be able to participate in the group life and develop the human characteristics. The process through which an infant internalizes the values and norms into himself or the mode of learning to live in society is called the process of socialization. The important outcome of the socialization is the individual personality. Personality refers to the fairly stable patterns of thought, feeling, and actions characteristic of human beings. The core of personality is the self, which is a personal identity which he experiences consciously as distinct from other people and things. And while the cognitive social theory describes the influence of individual experiences, the action of others, and environmental factors in individual health behaviors. Social cognitive theory and socialization theory are theories that try to explain learning in the social context, with the main position being that people acquire new behavior by observations. The two theories focus solely on behavior in terms of what we can be learned, setting aside of other things such as knowledge or cognitive skills. The word social refers to the influence of the social interactions on how we acquire new behavior which may not necessarily be social in nature, and how we perpetuate them. Both of these theories are rooted in behavior traditions that focus on learned behavior and excluding thought and emotions. Still, both theories do acknowledge the cognitive processes that play a role in learning and behavior.
What is conflict perspective? The conflict perspective refers to the inequalities that exist in all societies globally. Conflict theory is particularly interested in the various aspects of master status in social position, the primary identifying characteristics of an individual seen in terms of race or ethnicity, sex or gender, age, religion, ability or disability, and socioeconomic status. According to the conflict paradigm, every society is plagued by inequality based on social differences among the dominant group and all of the other groups in society. When we are analyzing any element of society from this perspective, we need to look at the structures of wealth, power, and status, and the ways in which those structures maintain social, economic, political, and coercive power of one group at the expense of others.
Hello everyone! So now we are going to talk about structural functionalist perspective. So what is structural functionalism? So it is a sociological theory that attempts to explain why society functions the way it does by focusing on the relationships between the various social institutions that make up society. So example given are government, law, education, religion, and etc. So the structural functional approach is a perspective in sociology that sees society as a complex system whose parts work together to promote solidarity and stability. It asserts that our lives are guided by the social structures, which are relatively stable patterns of social behavior. So social structures give shape to our lives, for example, in families, the community, and through religious organizations. And certain rituals, such as handshakes or complex religious ceremonies, give structures to our everyday lives. Each social structure has social functions or consequence for the operation of society as a whole. Education, for example, has several important functions in a society, such as socialization, learning, and social placement. So there are four concepts of structural functionalist perspective. So first is social cohesion. So it describes the bond that brings people together in a society. In order for the groups to be cohesive in a social context, positive membership attitudes and behaviors have to produce and maintain. So social cohesion can be looked at on both an individual and group level. Individual levels include an individual desire or intention to remain part of a group, her attitudes and beliefs about the group, and the individual's intention to sever, weaken, or maintain or strengthen her membership or participation in a group, and her susceptibility to group influence. So, social cohesion at a group level is directly affected by the individual members. So, second is social inequality. So, it refers to any scenario in which individuals in a society do not have equal social status. There are areas of potential inequality including voting rights, freedom of speech and assembly, the extent of property rights, and the access to education, healthcare, quality housing, and other social goods. So social inequality is an important characteristic of structural functionalism, as the theory assumes since inequality exists, there needs to be a certain level of inequality in order for a society to operate. One possible function of inequality is to motivate people, as people are motivated to carry out work through a reward system. Rewards may include income, status, prestige, or power. So third is interdependence. So it is a central theme in structural functionalism. It refers to the parts of society sharing a common set of principles, and institutions, organizations, and individuals are all interdependent with one another. So lastly, equilibrium. So in a social context, it is the internal and external balance in a society. While temporary disturbance may upset the equilibrium of society, because of social structure, society will eventually return to a balanced and orderly state. So that society strives toward equilibrium also means that changes happens slowly.
Structural functionalism is a theoretical perspective in sociology that emphasizes the interconnectedness and interdependence of social institutions and structures. When comparing pre-industrial and contemporary societies from a structural functionalist perspective, there are several key differences to consider. First is the division of labor. The pre-industrial societies, the division of labor was often based on age, gender, and family lineage. In contrast, contemporary societies have a more complex division of labor that is based on specialized skills and education. Second is the social institutions. Pre-industrial societies had fewer formal social institutions, and social roles and expectations were often defined by religion and tradition. In contemporary societies, there are more formal social institutions, such as schools, hospitals, and corporations, which play a greater role in shaping social roles and expectations. Third is the social stratification. In pre-industrial societies, social stratification was often based on hereditary factors such as birth and family lineage. In contemporary societies, social stratification is more complex and based on factors such as education, occupation, and income. Fourth is the technology and communication. Pre-industrial societies had limited technology and communication systems, which meant that social interactions were primarily face-to-face and local. In contrast, contemporary societies have advanced technology and communication systems that allow for global interactions and instantaneous communication. Overall, the differences between pre-industrial and contemporary societies highlight the ways in which a structural functionalist theory can help us understand the evolution of social institutions and structures over time, and how they contribute to the overall functioning and stability of society.
What is symbolic interaction perspective? The symbolic interaction theory notes that social interaction is a dynamic process in which people continually modify their behavior as a result of interaction. Sociologist Max Weber introduced the basic of this theory by saying that individuals act according to their interpretation of the meaning of their world. Herbert Blumer coined the term symbolic interaction. By this, he meant that people do not respond directly to the world, but they respond to the meaning they bring to it. The sociology of gender examines how society influences our understanding and perception of differences between masculinity and femininity. When we talk about masculinity, it means that what society deems appropriate behavior for a man, while femininity means that what society deems appropriate behavior for women. And that concludes our report. Thank you for listening.